Hello there. Today I'm gonna rank Minecraft ores according to different sort of scenarios in the game. There is some such as Hypixel and the like that I did not mention, and mind you, this is all in my own personal opinion here. So feel free after you watch this video, or I guess while you're watching, it doesn't really matter, to leave your opinions down below and how you would rank each of these ores. So we're going to be going through a few different categories here. So the first one here is speedrunning. We're going through normal survival, battle minigames, and then armor trim with armor trims. So let's jump right into it. So, oh yeah, and by the way, check out Canva here. Super great website. It's really helpful with making great presentations. Highly recommend it. So, with with speedrunning, right? This is where you're trying to beat the game as quickly as possible. You're trying to get to the end so you can defeat the Ender Dragon. And um, so let's see here. So iron, I think you definitely need iron to speedrun. It's very useful. You need it for making a bucket, a flint and steel, and also an iron pickaxe, which you need in order to mine gold blocks to trade with piglins. It's a huge part, and so I would say that iron would be S tier. It's absolutely required, and makes it much easier to do that. Coal. You don't need coal in order to have a good speedrun. If you manage to find a lot of iron in a village, then you're pretty set. And the villages aren't too hard to find. But sometimes if you're not as lucky, or if you have a like a more if you don't have like a great spawn, then you probably want to grab yourself some coal. So I would say probably I'd say probably A tier. No, I'll say B tier because you don't have to have it in order to, but it is helpful. Um, Redstone. You can make redstone machines if you in speedrunning, but generally you're not really going to need to, and it takes a lot of time in order to collect all of it, as well as the fact that redstone, you normally have to dig pretty far down in order to get that, or you have to kill a lot of witches, and neither of those things are particularly helpful. You're going to take a lot of time to get the redstone anyways, and to make any machines craft, and it also typically needs a lot of other resources. So really, it's just kind of a waste of time to get it. Maybe unless you're trying to brew potions, but generally I don't see people using it almost ever. So I'm going to put it in F tier. Um, Lapis, it can be helpful in speedrunning, if you're trying to enchant stuff, but generally I don't see that too frequently. I do think it is better than redstone in that it's easier to get lapis, as well as it's a little bit more practical for it, especially if you're trying to kill stuff a little bit faster, and if you happen to be able to get the resources for an enchanting table really quickly and get to the stronghold and find a library room, then you might be able to do that and get that to work for you. But it's not really required, so I would just say I say C tier. I would put it B, but the thing is, you would probably need coal a lot more than you would need lapis, and I don't generally see lapis being used as much. Copper, maybe unless you're trying to do a like all advanced in speedrun, or like specific random items you're trying to get, maybe such as mob heads, and you need a copper rod for that. That it's not going to be particularly practical, as well as that you have to take all the time to mine it and smelt it, It doesn't really help you accomplish much of anything. If you're trying to use it as a sort of building block to help get you around in the speedrun, you would just have much easier time with mining wood or stone. So I'm just gonna say it is F tier. Emerald. Emerald, it's not required in order to have a good speedrun, but it's definitely very helpful, especially if you're playing in certain versions of the game, or if you're able to get a lot of wood really quickly. It's not required, but you could get a bunch of it through probably something called like stick trades. That's probably a very easy one, and then you can trade these with cleric villagers in order to get ender pearls, which is a fairly reliable way of getting them, especially if you are playing an older version where you're not able to go to the nether and find a warped forest to kill endermen there, or barter with piglins. So I'm gonna put it in A tier. Diamond. All right, so diamond is definitely a pretty cool ore. Used to make diamond stuff, right? Like armor, swords, pickaxes, all that good things. And it can be it's just really nice to have diamonds in a speedrun. It basically means that you can make better weapons, you can make an enchanting table, which could really help you out, especially if you're trying to kill stuff faster. Right? But generally, you won't need it quite as much, and especially if you're trying to go for like a world record type, then unless you are able to get diamonds very quickly after starting the speedrun, or get them while like you're running to something else, such as collecting blaze rods or ender pearls in the nether, and finding them in a chest in like a bastion or another fortress, then generally it's not going to really be that useful or helpful to take the time to try to find them. So I'm going to put them in B tier. Quartz. Quartz can be a little helpful if you're trying to get, if you're trying to repair a mending tool that you managed to get, such as if you have like a golden pickaxe and you're doing a very fast first speedrun and you mine some gold, mine some nether quartz ore, that can help kind of repair your pickaxe so that way you can get through a little bit faster. But generally, I don't really see people doing that too much. However, it is, it can be helpful, but it's just really situational. It's if you have a mending tool, and generally people don't. Speedrunners don't have that, so I'm just gonna put it in C tier. Gold. Gold is very, very. I'm just gonna immediately put that in S tier, because you're very, very likely gonna need gold, especially if you're playing on a 1.16 or higher version, and you're trying to, barter with piglins. Piglins are a great way to get tons of resources, such as ender pearls, fire resistance potions, and even little bits of extra building blocks, such as blackstone, and the like. So it's a very, very quick way, and it is faster than trying to kill a bunch of endermen. And so you could, if you manage to pull it off right, I see plenty of people doing this who are professional speedrunners, is that they will they'll take a bunch of gold in this bastion, and then they'll throw it into this hole where the piglins are at. Then the piglins will take that and trade stuff out, while the player, the speedrunner goes and collects their blaze rods in order to kind of multitask, get things done really quickly. Especially since you're not guaranteed to get ender pearls every single time when you give a piglin a gold ingot. So you really just want to make sure you're making the most of your time. Netherite, very, very impressive if you manage to get it in a speedrun. However, it's not particularly practical, and you'd also need to spend the iron and also have enough diamonds, as well as having a netherite upgrade if you're playing a 1.20 or higher version of the game in order to actually do anything with it. So really not going to be particularly helpful on that front. Although it is definitely great if you're having it for, armor or weapons. So it can be really helpful, but generally it's just not going to be particularly practical. So I don't know. I'm kind of stuck between B and C tier. So I'm gonna put it. I'm gonna put it in B tier. No, I'll put it in C tier. It's more fitting. All right. And then this isn't necessarily an ore per se, but a lot of people think it is, and I'm not really sure if it is, to be honest, but I thought I'd include it. So amethyst is a fairly recent ore. It was added in 1.17 Caves and Cliffs update part 1. It's not really that great for speedrunning, since most of the time what I see, maybe unless you're playing on Bedrock Edition, where you don't have a way to zoom in on things from further away. Right, well, generally people that are speedrunning Minecraft, more so specifically on Java Edition of the game, right, then they're going to, they'll just use a certain mod and certain other tricks within the game in order to zoom in on things far away. It'd be mostly used for a spyglass, but you don't really need that if you're doing certain tips. So, and most people seem to know them, so I'm going to put it down here. Not very helpful. All right, get some water. If you're enjoying this video so far and you want to see more stuff like this, then feel free to like the video and subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell, so that way you can see new notifications, new videos when they pop up. All right, so that was speedrunning tier here. Now, next we are on to, oh, okay, that's annoying. No, we don't let that zoom out. Okay, so next we are here on to normal survival. I'm going to be doing this based on my experience as a Java Edition main player. However, I think this will pretty much apply pretty much the same for most Bedrock Edition survival world experiences as well. So, and this is all just a kind of assuming, again, that you're playing a at least 1.20 version, as not all of these ores exist in older versions past that. So anyways, let's get on to this. So for normal survival, I would say that iron is definitely pretty helpful for a lot of things. You can not only make basic gear such as armor and tools, weapons, but it's also really helpful for stuff such as making shields, making buckets, particular very helpful items in the survival experience, alongside of a bunch of redstone things, such as pistons, cauldrons, and whatnot for various farms, automatic farms. And iron is also a fairly easy resource to get. It's also pretty durable, and so I think I'm going to rank that as S tier, because you're definitely going to want a lot of iron in your world. Coal is pretty helpful. I definitely like having a lot of it. However, if you do manage to set up certain farms, or simply just cut down like a bunch of wood, you can always use other fuel sources such as charcoal, or using, and this is again Java Edition only, but there's a glitch where you can make infinite carpet, and you can use that as fuel. I don't know if that was patched out in one of the most recent versions, but I know I've seen a lot of people do that. So there are a lot of other really great fuel sources, but it's definitely pretty good. And it's still really good for most of the game, most of the survival world. So I'd definitely rank it A tier. Redstone is really mixed because it's depending on one's own sort of play style. But I think redstone is can be quite helpful, especially or mostly with two things. One, with making automatic farms in order to get tons of resources in the game. In particular, stuff with like iron or gold, maybe. As well as if you really enjoy making complicated bases, or if you want to make other sort of farms and whatnot. It's also really good for making potions, as that way you can use it to make them last for a longer period of time. So I think it's pretty solid. So I'm gonna put it as I'm gonna put it as B tier, and that's mostly just because I don't tend to use the most amount of redstone myself. It is helpful, but I don't use it quite as frequently, and I don't typically make structures or bases that require lots of complicated machinery. Lapis, it's not required, but it is. It's definitely really helpful to have, especially if you're trying to enchant lots of things. However, there are lots of other ways of getting enchanted gear, such as getting enchanted books and putting those items on an anvil, which there's lots of ways in order to do that, as well as the fact that you can get enchanted gear from a variety of structures in the game, such as ruin portals, bastions, and in cities. In addition to that, you can also buy enchanted gear from villagers, so it's not necessarily required. And besides that, if you're trying to do any other sort of uses with this, you can use it to make lapis lazuli blocks or to make blue dye. However, I typically don't really do those too frequently. It can be nice, especially on Java Edition, since you're not able to bone meal flowers to get more of them, unlike on Bedrock Edition. So for that, I do like using blue dye for things such as concrete or glass, but generally I don't use it again too much. I would put it in B tier. Copper. Okay, I know a lot of people don't really like using copper, mostly just because, again, right, like, it's not used to make any sort of tools or weapons. But again, normal survival is not all about combat. It's also about all sorts of other potential practicalities and considerations. And so oftentimes, in normal survival world series that I see, or even of my own, I've enjoyed using copper as a building block for a variety of different things. It's not the easiest block to build with, simply just because you kind of need a lot of it in order to actually make anything of a sizable kind of structure, such as a roof or perhaps some kind of submarine or something like that. But it can be kind of cool. So I'm gonna put it in B tier. Emerald. I think I don't often need to have emeralds in a main survival world series that I've done, but I think that they are definitely pretty cool to have. especially again if you really want to take advantage of using villagers in order to minimize the amount of work that you have to do. I think it'd be pretty good. It can really help save a lot of time collecting resources. I wouldn't say A tier. Diamond, definitely pretty good. You can make. It doesn't really do terribly much outside of just making diamond armor, tools, and weapons. But that it doesn't necessarily really need to. It's not necessarily the easiest resource to get, but there's a lot of ways of obtaining it. In addition to that, it also has a really good amount of durability, and they tend to last for. And because of that, because they tend to last for quite some time. So I'm going to put them in S tier. Very good. Quartz. Another sort of just building block, but I think the one thing that really makes it even more helpful is the fact that it gives a lot of XP when you mine it, which is especially helpful if you have mending on any of your tools. As I'm sure you know, the process of trying to mine for netherite can be quite tedious, especially if you don't have a lot of explosives to help clear out a lot of area. And I've often used, although not exclusively, I've often used just old-fashioned pickaxe to mine through a lot of netherrack to find it, and it tends to drain through a lot of durability. So I'm going to say it's definitely pretty helpful. It's also a pretty cool building block, so I'm going to put in A tier. Gold. Gold is a pretty cool one. Even though its weapons and armor are not very good most of the time, it can be a little helpful on occasion, especially in earlier or middle game scenarios, if you don't have very much other equipment. In addition to that, it also helps with not having piglins attack you, which is a really good, really helpful thing. It's not as much of a concern when you have enchanted diamond or netherite gear, but for time before that, it's pretty good. In addition to that, you can use it to trade with piglins to get tons of resources, such as building blocks, fire resistance potions, and the like, which can be really helpful and make anyone's time in the nether a lot easier. They give you lots of different kinds of resources. In addition to that, it's also very good for beacons. I've often used gold blocks for beacons, since there's a lot of different ways to get gold in the game, and you can also make a gold farm, which tend to, if you set it one up right, it tends to give you a lot of gold per hour. So it's really helpful for those things. In addition to that, it's also required for upgrading any diamond gear to netherite. And so for all of these things, I'm going to say that it is S tier. Netherite, again, it doesn't really do much outside of itself like netherite, like diamond does. Excuse me. I realized my mouse just died, so I'm going to plug that in. Yes, but netherite, even though unfortunately Mojang introduced the netherite upgrade in a recent Minecraft version, that was 1.20, Trails and Tales, it is definitely something that a lot of players really want. It makes your tools and armor last for a significant, a very, very long time, already on top of diamond gear. It can be kind of expensive and also take a lot of time to get, but I think it's very much quite worth the effort, especially if you really like taking the time to explore, fight all sorts of different mobs or bosses, or even just make sort of mega structures for really big projects. You definitely want netherite on your gear to make it last for the longest that it can before you have to repair it. So that's going to be S tier. And lastly, we have amethyst. Amethyst is it's cool. It sounds nice. I like the sounds that it makes when you walk on the blocks. However, it doesn't really do terribly much, and I don't really find myself wanting or caring too much about getting Amethyst in a survival series. When I used to play mostly on Bedrock Edition, I cared a lot more for this, but now since I've been mostly Java player and I can just use a mod to zoom into things, and I don't have to use up a whole inventory space just to carry a spyglass, I'm saying it's not very helpful. The only sort of thing that makes it, I guess, not be an F tier is that it can be used for tinted glass, which is a very cool block. It's very useful for mob farms. However, generally, I don't really go out seeking it. And if I do find an amethyst geode, I'm like, cool, I collect some amethyst, and then I just don't really care about it anymore. I kind of tend to forget about it. Okay. So let's move on. Oh, I'm sorry, I just had to get my laundry. Breath, I ran to go check that real quick. Alright, next category. Battle minigames. Now, there's a lot of different sort of versions of these, and it also really depends on... It kind of depends a little bit on what version and edition of the game you're playing, as well as specifically what the battle minigame is. For those who don't understand what a battle minigame is basically a player versus player sort of thing, where you'll typically have a small or medium-sized arena where players will go around, collect resources, and fight each other. And basically, yeah, and then whoever or whatever the team is that's last standing, they win. So that's really all that is here. This could also, I guess, kind of apply for stuff like PvP Legacy, a very big and popular server. And I'm not too sure. I'm kind of thinking just more like in general. So let's see here. I'm just going to go ahead and rank the ones that I think are not really that good. So put copper there. Again, it's just building block. You don't really too much. Same thing, kind of. Well, quartz is a little better because you can get XP from it. If you're playing with mending stuff, it can be helpful, but generally not too frequently used. Redstone, I would say, is C tier, and that's really only just because I would put it in F tier, but the only thing I just put it here is because occasionally I see people making really good sort of redstone machines, but generally not too much. And it can be used for making potions that are, such as like fire resistance or regeneration to last longer, which can be quite helpful. But generally, I don't see people who tend to be brewing potions during a battle minigame. They tend to already have potions provided to them. So unless that's not the case, it's not really be that helpful. Emerald, not really helpful here. You don't, as a battle minigame, you typically don't end up trading with villagers. There are certain games that tend to, but in my experience, I don't really do games such as those. So again, not really helpful. Same kind of thing goes with coal. It can be nice, but generally, again, you're not going to be fighting. I tend to not. I don't really see people fighting in places where it's really dark and you need to make torches or smelt things. Again, you tend to have a lot of the resources already provided to you, so it's not going to be that helpful. Amethyst doesn't really help do anything in a PvP situation. Lapis, I'm gonna put here, and that's just because, like, again, it could be nice to have if you're enchanting stuff, but it's the same kind of thing with the redstone, where you tend to already have the gear enchanted or potions already made, so you're not really going to typically need it. I'm going to put gold in B tier, and that's only just because you can actually make gear with this, such as pickaxes, axes, and armor. But then again, it's not a very high quality one, but it's tend to be better to have some actual kind of gear than not. You can't use any of these to make any gear, so that's why this one goes here. Kind of, I guess, kind of fitting that the gold goes with the B tier, it's yellow. A tier, I'm going to say iron, because pretty good resource to have. I see a lot of fights taking place with it. You also really need, especially if you want to make buckets and shields and the like, which are very, very helpful for that. And then actually, I'm going to put iron here because especially with the shields and buckets are super helpful with defending yourself or collecting water or lava, either to put yourself out of fire or to get out of a certain scenario, or to collect lava and hold it so that way you can get your opponents to swim in it and take a lot of fire damage. Diamond, very good. I don't always see it in fights, but it's very commonly used. A lot of durability, a lot of damage. Not really too much else to say with that. Netherite is pretty good. However, I don't really see it being used too much. Excuse me. In most PvP scenarios, but definitely having netherite gear is pretty good. So this is our actually I kind of feel like I want to adjust this maybe. Now I guess we'll do this. No, I don't know. I'll just put gold here. I'm not really too sure which one of these to put it in. It's between A and B tier. So yeah, this is my ranking for Minecraft Ores for battle minigames. And last, but certainly not least, we have with armor trims. Now, this one here is purely just for aesthetics. It doesn't, as armor trims work in the game. This is really only just decoration. It just changes the way that your armor looks, with certain kind of unique patterns and whatnot. It does not give you any sort of special or unique abilities or powers or anything like that, although I have seen people occasionally play with mods that do stuff like that. But generally, no, it's more just an aesthetic sort of choice. So for this one, I'm personally just doing off of how good I think they look with armor. Again, it kind of also really depends a lot on with what armor trim and what type of armor you're doing it on, as well as what sort of aesthetic you're going for. But again, I'm just doing this based on personal preferences and how likely I am. So right off the bat, coal is not helpful at all with this. You can't even use coal for armor trims, so it's useless on that front. I'm gonna put copper in C tier. It does look kind of cool sometimes, but again, it's not one that I very frequently use that much. It's okay, but I just tend to not really want to use copper for that kind of stuff. I would say then we can also put emerald here. It can look kind of cool on iron armor, more so, but generally most of the time when I'm in scenarios where I'm wearing armor that I really want to put armor trims on, that's going to be long-term survival sort of experiences, or maybe challenges. And again, if I'm already doing all that work, I'm probably not going to want to spend 4 emeralds. It's not because it's an expensive choice, rather just because it doesn't really look that good on diamond armor all the times, and it can look good on netherite, but it kind of just depends. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. I would say I put lapis in B tier, just because it can look kind of cool. I don't use it that frequently, and it is kind of too dark of a blue, but it can look good. It can look good, and it's not too hard to use, especially since you'll probably get a lot of lapis when you're mining it or trading with villagers. Iron I'm gonna put here, just again because like it doesn't really look that good. Actually, I'm gonna put emerald here. I think it looks better. These two aren't really that great, my experience. I know it's funny because like on here, right, iron, it ranked, A tier, A tier, A tier, or means S tier. It ranked S tier on these other 3 categories, but for like an armor trim, it's not that good. And especially since if you're trying to go for like a white sort of color, I would go with amethyst. I'd go with that's not it. I'd go with quartz, which I'd say is A tier. I think it looks pretty cool. It kind of also just depends on what type of armor you're doing it with. But I think it looks good on gold and netherite armor. It's not the best, but it's not a bad choice at all. A redstone, I'm going to put... actually, I'm going to put redstone here on S tier. I don't use it the most myself on armor trims. I think it looks very sick. I think it looks super cool. And it's also not really too hard to do, especially if you're trying to get a lot of redstone for other things such as automatic farms, or you're simply just trading with the villagers, or whatever the case may be. You're probably gonna have a lot of excess redstone, and I just think it looks super cool, even if I don't use it the most myself. Diamond, I think this one is probably A tier. It can look pretty cool, and I do like how it looks on different things. But again, I don't really. It's just personal thing. I don't really care as much for having blue on my trim, on my armor. Although it can look, although it does look nicer than lapis. And then gold. I'd say gold is, I don't know. It's not great, but it's not bad. I'm gonna put it in B tier. I'm gonna put between B and C because it really just depends on what you're putting it on. If you're putting it on pretty much anything that's not really netherite, then it doesn't really look that great. So I would probably put it kind of low. I tend to not really go with the brighter sort of colors in my armor trims. I mean, my armor pieces. Netherite ingot. I mean, at this point, if you're putting netherite on your armor with your armor trims, you're just flexing on everybody else, having the most expensive ore on that, regardless of whatever your armor type is. Especially a really big flex if you're putting it on netherite armor with, with the silence armor trim. I think it's the rarest trim, or at least the hardest one to get. So that's definitely a pretty big flex. But looks wise, I think it looks like pretty good. It's not like great, but I think it looks pretty good on stuff like iron. Or gold, or even a diamond. It looks pretty good. I also just really like the dark color. I think that works out really well. And finally, we have amethyst. Again, this one kind of depends on what armor you're putting it on. But I think it does look pretty cool. Especially on netherite. I've used it on there a bunch of times. In fact, I've often used it for that, so I'm going to put it up here. And I just really like the way, just the purple color, again, sort of fits with my own personal aesthetic. And here we have the final results for with the Minecraft Auras with armor trims. And so I'm just curious here. So do I want to put these on a point system and then rank them off of that? Well, actually, I'm not going to do that. But if you want to, anyone in my comment section down below wants to rank each of these and just say, for example, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 point for each category going down, right? And then you want to add these up, divide and whatnot. Put that in the comment section down below. Just, I don't know, it doesn't really matter, but in case you just really want to. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to doing more rankings. Yeah, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.